Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a little different than normal because a couple weeks ago I actually took in a very neglected leopard gecko. This is him. His name is Dave. He's doing much better now. He's gained weight, his colors are much brighter, he's gone through a full shed, his energy levels are better. Overall, he's just much healthier than he was when I took him in. And his story is that, as I've mentioned, I do work at a reptile store, and unfortunately there's a lot of neglect that I have no control over. I do my best, but there are some things that my boss will not let me do, even if it's in the animal's best interest. However, about 2.5 years ago, we sold this little guy, and my coworker, who does take very good care of her personal animals, told the lady how to take care of him and everything. The lady pretty much just said, no, he doesn't need all that, and then bought him. And just left and completely ignored everything we said and told us that it was completely unnecessary. And 2 months ago-ish, she brought him back and said that we'd sold her a very sick gecko and that he was messed up and she didn't want him anymore. And she left after that. She just kind of left him with us. We do take surrenders as well. But when she left him with us, he was extremely underweight. His colors were very dull. He had a difficult time walking by himself. He's missing toes due to incorrect humidity and hydration levels. Again, he was very, very underweight. And me and my coworker were doing the best we could to take care of him and get him in better shape. And he was improving. And then after a while, he started to go back downhill and was not doing well anymore. And one of the things that I disagree with that my boss does is his method of euthanizing reptiles. And what he does is he puts them in a plastic bag and sticks them in the freezer. That is one of the most miserable ways you can euthanize a reptile. If you guys want a video on how to humanely do it at home, I can do that for you guys. Even though it's a tough subject, it is important, so let me know if you want that. But anyway, I was very concerned that Dave was on his way to the freezer. So I managed to convince my parents to let me bring him home. And he is now here. Again, he's doing much better. He's eating. He's gone through a full shed. His colors are brighter. He's overall doing much, much better. And what I've been doing with him is I've been doing baths about every couple days for him. He's been eating waxworms and dubia roaches dusted in a calcium powder or multivitamin. Waxworms I've been feeding just because they are fatty and it's helping him put on that body weight, and I've been feeding him daily, by the way. And then dubia roaches just to add some variety and other nutrients. And then he's in a 20-gallon enclosure. So a lot of people would say that is too small for a leopard gecko. The reason I have him in a smaller enclosure is due to the fact that he is missing almost all of his toes. He does have a difficult time moving around, and I think if he was in a bigger enclosure, he would potentially just wear himself out. So he seems to be fairly content in that enclosure. And I will be making a naturalistic background for him. I'll be putting peel and stick tiling on the sides. I've still got to order in some lighting and whatnot. But either way, I'm going to do my best to completely revamp that enclosure and make it look as nice as I can for him. But either way, those are the main things I've been doing with him. And then now I'm going to go ahead and just show you some of the video clips from the last couple weeks and just kind of walk you through everything I've done and let you guys see it firsthand. So this was Dave the day that I brought him home, and then while I let him settle in, I went ahead and set up a temporary bin just with some paper towels, half of a cave so that he would feel more secure in there, of course a second cave, and then a little water dish. That was, again, just a little temporary enclosure until I was able to set up his permanent 20-gallon enclosure. So this was his first morning after I brought him home. It's kind of hard to tell with the position that he's sitting in, but he is pretty underweight. So one of the main things I'm going to be working on with him is just making sure that he's eating enough food, getting some more insects that have more fat on them in order to help him put on some more body fat. In this clip, you can see that walking is kind of hard for him. You'll notice that with each step, he does take a bit of a break in between each one and just let himself rest before he tries to take another step. This was his first meal. I was honestly pretty surprised that he ate so quickly after bringing him home, but again, he was just eating waxworms dusted in a calcium powder. For substrate, I'm just using Eco Earth, which you need to put in a bucket or tub of some sort with warm water and let it expand for about 30 minutes, and then you're good to go. And these heat mats actually come with little feet in order to elevate your terrarium so that your heat mat has a little bit of airflow, which prevents it from getting damaged or, in some cases, catching something on fire. So I actually have the enclosure laying on its back right now because with these heat mats, you peel the adhesive off and stick it directly onto your enclosure to keep it from shifting, rather than sticking it onto the surface of the stand or whatever it is you're placing your enclosure on. And this is what the Eco Earth looks like once it's expanded, so now that it's ready, we can start adding it into the enclosure. Everything is washed and clean. I went ahead and snagged the cave that he had in his temporary bin, just because he did really seem to like it, so I wanted him to still have it and be able to use it. But yeah, now that everything is clean, we're going to go ahead and set up his enclosure. Here's his enclosure finished. At some point I will make a naturalistic background. I'm also going to be adding lighting and peel and stick tile to the sides, which will help fill it in and just overall make it look more finished. And now Dave is ready for his first bath. I did about ½ inch of warm water, and then of course I dechlorinated it using ReptiSafe. I use this for all of my reptiles. Again, it just dechlorinates it and makes sure that it's safe for them. When you bathe reptiles, they do typically drink a little bit when you first put them in, so it's always a good idea to make sure that it's dechlorinated. Once Dave is in his bath, I let him soak for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then after that I do add betadine or povidone iodine. They're the same thing. Basically what this does is it helps clear out any infection that may be there from minor cuts or wounds, or again because his toes did literally rot off, just to make sure that they're clean. Even though they do look healed over, I just want to make sure. And again, judging by where he came from, he was not cared for properly, so I just want to make sure that he has no infections or parasites. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few drops of that until it looks like the color of tea. Once Dave had been soaking for about 15 minutes, I went ahead and took him out of his bath and set him on a towel, just so that he could dry off a little bit before I put him back in his enclosure. If you put them back in wet, the substrate will stick to them, which obviously isn't a very good thing, so I just wanted to make sure he was dry before putting him back. So before we end today's video, I do kind of want to give you guys a little backstory on why his name is Dave, because if you've seen any of my other videos, you probably know that that's not the typical style of name I go for with reptiles. However, I do have a Jackson's chameleon, and my dad kept trying to call him Dino Dave. And when this guy was at the reptile store I work at, I sent my dad a picture of him and said, here, he convey your Dino Dave, in order to keep him from calling Loki, my chameleon, Dino Dave. And then it just stuck, and like all of my coworkers and everybody just called him Dave. However, now that I have him, and because he's missing toes, my dad calls him Dysfunctional Dave instead of Dino Dave. But either way, his name is Dave just because of that. It just kind of stuck. So yeah, and then also I do want to mention that don't ever take in a rescue animal unless you are absolutely positive that you have the space and the time and the finances, the knowledge, everything you need in order to properly care for them and provide them with what they need. Rescue animals do typically have a lot more care requirements than just your average healthy reptile may need, such as vet bills or just more food, more multivitamins, more whatever. They just typically have more intense care requirements. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're prepared for it before you take in a rescue. But yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to mention. And then otherwise, that wraps up today's video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and that you learned something new. And we will see you in the next video. So make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe.